Sometimes you see these textiles and they seem to whisper stories, don't they? Artistry, heritage, all woven together.
They really do.
And today, we're taking a deep dive into one of those exact kinds, Suzani.
Hmm.
Just picture these incredible embroidered textiles from Central Asia. So vibrant, intricate, really captivating stuff.
Absolutely stunning. When you first see a Suzani, it's like the visual impact is immediate, this explosion of color, the detail.
Yeah.
But then you look closer and you realize, well, it's more than just decoration. It's a tradition, carried in the threads with really deep roots.
Exactly. And for anyone listening who might not know the term, a Suzani is a type of decorative tribal textile.
Yeah.
It comes mainly from places like Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan.
Mm-hmm.
And the name itself is interesting. It comes from the Persian word Suzan, which just means needle. Simple as that. And the designs, they're like a whole garden bursting onto the fabric. You see flowers, leaves, vines, all sorts of fruits and vegetables too.
And often these like really powerful solar symbols are woven in. It points to something quite ancient, that connection to the cosmos.
Right.
Traditionally, it was silk or cotton threads embroidered onto a base of cotton or silk. And it's fascinating how they've sort of found their place now, often as, wall hangings in homes, even mosques, real statement pieces.
But what makes this deep dive, I think, really special is that we're not just looking at it historically. You actually got the chance to learn this craft yourself firsthand.
I did, yeah.
And knowing how much you love those sort of aha moments, getting right to the heart of something, we figured your personal journey would be a really unique and engaging way to understand Suzani.
Absolutely. So yeah, we'll definitely explore the history, the cultural side of things, but the real core of this deep dive, it's going to be that personal story, that immersion into, actually doing Suzani embroidery, from just admiring it to picking up the needle.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Let's start right there then. Take us back. That moment you first saw Suzani in a way that really lit that spark, made you want to learn.
Okay, so I was at an art festival, and I just remember being completely pulled in by the sheer vibrancy of the Suzani embroidery they had on display.
Mm-hmm.
The colors felt like they were almost jumping off the fabric. And the details, the stitching, just mesmerizing. There was this one piece, a big, hanging, incredible floral patterns outlined in these really bold colors. That one really grabbed me.
Wow.
It felt like looking at, a living tapestry. But it wasn't just that one. The whole family's collection was just captivating.
Yeah.
The skill, the artistry, you could see it in every single stitch. It was more than just looking. It was this visceral feeling. I wanted to know how something so beautiful was made.
So it wasn't just, that's pretty. It was deeper.
Oh, yeah.
It really triggered something.
It really did.
What happened next?
Well, I found myself sort of lingering there at their stall, just completely absorbed by all the different designs, the textures, and then almost without thinking, I just asked the family selling the work, do you ever teach this?
Oh, just like that.
Just like that. It was totally spontaneous, just driven by this sudden, really intense curiosity.
Wow, that's pretty bold. How did they react?
Well, to my surprise, they were incredibly warm, really welcoming. One of the daughters, she must have seen how interested I was. She actually invited me to sit down right then and there and try working on a piece she was embroidering.
No way. Right on the spot.
Yeah, it was completely unexpected and just so generous. I remember feeling this rush of excitement, but also, a little bit nervous too.
That's amazing. Those spontaneous connections often lead to the best things. Okay, before we get into that very first stitch, let's just get a bit of context.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk Suzani, especially in, say, Uzbekistan, what's its traditional role, its significance?
Right. Well, in Uzbekistan, you might hear it called kashta too, which is just another word for embroidery. And traditionally, these textiles, they were really important, especially around marriage. It was customary for a bride to have a whole collection of Suzanis as part of her dowry. Sometimes as many as a dozen.
A dozen. Wow. That's a serious contribution. How are they made? Who made them?
It was a real labor of love, often took years. Historically, it was the bride's family, different women chipping in with their skills. They'd hand sew these Suzanis together.
Communal effort.
Exactly. A real tangible expression of, their hopes and blessings for the couple. Imagine the time, the dedication for all those intricate pieces. But like a lot of traditions, things change. Nowadays, it's much more common for brides to bring, store-bought Suzanis or maybe carpets instead. Life moves faster.
Yeah, that makes sense. How does that shift impact the art form itself, though?
Oh, it definitely does. There's been a move away from that very personal family thing towards, production for tourists, for the market. And that's naturally led to more machine embroidery just to meet the demand. Now, machine-made ones can still be beautiful, don't get me wrong, but there's just this unique charm, this authenticity to the hand-sewn ones. You might even see like faint pencil lines from the original drawing on a hand-done piece. Some people really value that human touch. It's a direct link to the artisan.
Like their fingerprint almost, isn't it?
Exactly.
Okay, so back to the art festival. You had that spark, that amazing invitation to try it yourself. What was that actually like? Holding the needle for the first time.
It was. Well, a mix of excitement and honestly surprising awkwardness.
I bet.
The daughter who invited me, she had this frame set up, a piece already started with these beautiful, like swirling vine patterns. She showed me how to thread the needle, this bright silk thread, and how to keep the fabric tight.
Okay.
Then the actual stitching. My first few attempts were, let's just say they weren't masterpieces. The stitches were uneven. The tension was all over the place. I kept tangling the thread.
Sounds about right for trying any new handcraft.
Oh, absolutely. But what really struck me was her patience, her gentle guidance. She didn't laugh or make me feel silly. She just calmly showed me again and again how to make a consistent stitch.
That's lovely.
And as I was trying, it brought back this really vivid memory from years ago when I was in Uganda, learning to hand sew these simple little fabric pouches. There was that same feeling, you know? That focused concentration, this slow, deliberate movement, needle and thread, and that quiet satisfaction of making something with your hands, even if it's, totally imperfect.
That connection to a past experience must have made the moment even richer.
It definitely deepened it.
So what happened after those first few, maybe clumsy stitches?
Well, even those clumsy attempts, they sparked something more. I was just fascinated by how the thread was transforming the plain fabric. And that's when I asked them, again, totally spontaneously, would you be willing to actually teach me Suzani embroidery?
Just went for it again.
Yeah. I remember seeing this slight look of surprise on their faces, but then they just smiled and said they'd be happy to. And well, that was the start. This completely unexpected journey into a whole new world of textile art.
What a fantastic, organic way to start learning something like that. Now, you mentioned this family's deep connection to preserving the craft.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about them, their dedication.
Yeah, definitely. As I spent more time, I learned that for them, this wasn't just, a business. It was really deep and ingrained family tradition. The father, he was the creative mind behind the designs.
Okay.
And his two daughters were the incredibly skilled embroiderers. And what was really impressive, all three were graduates of Art University.
Oh, wow. So proper training, too.
Exactly. They had this formal artistic background in forming their craft. And they were very aware, of the trend towards mass-produced machine stuff. They felt this real responsibility to keep the handmade Suzani tradition alive. They even offered classes, Suzani classes, to share their skills. It was clear it was a passion project connecting the past and the present.
That's so important, that commitment. Preserving cultural heritage like that.
It really is. And it was actually incredibly moving to see how dedicated they were. Later on, they showed me some newspaper articles, awards they'd received, even recognition from the Uzbek government for their work.
Really?
Yeah, for preserving and promoting this key part of their cultural heritage. It just really underlined how significant what they were doing was.
And it sounds like you absolutely landed in the right place to learn.
Right.
So after that offer at the festival, you actually went to their home for your first proper lesson. What was that like?
Oh, visiting their home, their traditional Uzbek home, that was an experience in itself. So much warmth, such hospitality. And then, yeah, we got right down to it, learning.
The serious stuff.
The serious stuff. My first lesson was all about the absolute basics. Holding the needle right, threading it efficiently, making a basic even stitch. Now, that sounds incredibly simple, right?
Deceptively simple, I imagine.
Let me tell you. Trying to sew a straight line on that silk fabric,
Right.
surprisingly hard. I remember just concentrating so intensely, trying to keep the stitches the same size, keep the line straight. It took me what felt like forever, probably a good 30 minutes, just for a line about 20 centimeters long.
30 minutes?
Yeah. And when I looked at it, anything but straight. The stitches were wobbly, some tight, some loose. Oof.
I think anyone who's ever tried hand sewing can totally relate to that initial struggle.
Oh, completely. It was a real eye-opener. The skill, the precision that goes into those designs that look so effortless.
Yeah.
It's incredible. After the straight line, we tried curves, rotations. That was a whole other level of difficulty.
Totally.
It really felt like, 2 steps forward, 1 step back with every single attempt. But the daughter, she was just so patient, constantly correcting my technique, offering encouragement. At one point, the father came in, brought us this delicious plate of plov, the traditional Uzbek rice dish.
Oh, like
Yeah,
it.
and salad. It was such a kind, welcoming gesture. A nice little break.
Sounds like it.
And then it was back to it, that focus, that repetitive, almost meditative action. Pierce the fabric, pull the silk thread through, carefully. Each stitch, no matter how small or imperfect mine were, it gave me this deeper appreciation for the hours, just the sheer dedication that goes into a full Suzani piece.
I bet.
By the end of that first lesson, yeah, my fingers were a bit sore, my eyes maybe a little strained, but I felt this amazing sense of accomplishment, even with my very, very imperfect stitches.
That's great.
And the daughter, she gave me this warm smile, complimented my progress, though I suspect it might have been more kindness than total accuracy.
But still, that encouragement is so valuable, isn't it?
Totally.
It sounds like that first lesson was a real immersion. Not just technique, but the culture, the family's passion.
Yeah.
Everything.
It truly was. And it absolutely solidified my connection to what they were doing, their mission to preserve hand-sewn Suzani. It felt like I was witnessing and kind of participating in something really vital, a link to centuries of tradition and their desire to share the beauty, the technique, not just in Uzbekistan, but, beyond. They mentioned Japan, where I know there's such an appreciation for craftsmanship that was just incredibly inspiring.
It's a beautiful story. A personal connection leading to this deep appreciation for a cultural art form. And it really makes you think, doesn't it? Considering your experience and that family's dedication to preserving this tradition against, modernization. What other crafts, what other skills passed down through generations might be sort of at risk of fading away in our world? And maybe what can we do as individuals to support them, to help keep those unique stories, those techniques alive for the future? Definitely something to mull over.